there, let's talk sports fans. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk New York Sports, and I'm joined by my co-host Keith Engle from TGI Sports Talk. Thanks for joining me today, Keith.
No problem. Always happy to be with you, Dan. And sorry we didn't get on last week. I was away in beautiful downtown Aleppo, Michigan. Lansing, Michigan. So that's a bad joke. Sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody in Lansing. But I missed you last week, and we can catch up. A lot of news to talk about in New York, obviously. So
Yeah, we
looking forward
have.
to it.
And what can I say? It was part of our agreement, contract agreement, that you come on the draft show. I'll give you the day off. So we had to go by that. There's been a lot happen since then, which we'll talk that. But I know you went on air with Carlos earlier today. I had a chance to check it out. How did that go?
Well, actually, Carlos had to call in today because he had a last minute, I guess, some school thing with his daughter. I think his daughter, and I was going it alone. And Alec was there, and Alec jumped in with me, and we talked some sports between he and I. First time we've had a chance to interact like that, so I had some fun this morning with him, and it was a nice little change of pace. My head didn't explode.
Um,
Alex said nothing that made my head explode.
I can imagine. So as everyone knows, Alec is newer to the community, creating his own niche and doing stuff. So was just the sort of person we want at LTS just for a few point. As some people know, are being off air, and Nick was so panicked he reached out to people, and Alec was actually going drive down to check on me the next day. So shout out to Alex. That's the sort of gesture we like to think is part of the team, just everyone helping each other out.
That's definitely good of him, and I know I put him on the spot today because he happened to be. I saw him in the room, and I said, well, if you want to pop in, I'll send you the link. And he popped in, and we had fun for 45 minutes. So good egg. I like him a lot. Although,
Definitely, and
well, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Dan. I got to add real quick. I was pushing him to choose a baseball team, and he was looking to choose one, and he chose the Yankees. And ever since he chose the Yankees have been in the toilet. So I kind of blamed him for that.
let's not blame him, because what about what other 19 years I'm tempted to say.
No, I got plenty of people to blame, which I'm sure we'll get to. So
We will. So just anyone, there's a big interview Alex got coming up. He's created a niche in the flag football area. I won't announce it there, but I know he's quite hyped about it, so we'll probably announce that on Monday, but keep your eye out for that.
good man, good stuff.
So we may as well jump right in and talk Patriots. There's been a lot of activity. We ain't really talked about the draft. How do you feel about the draft? Because the first half of the draft, I don't actually hate. I think they're not like, none of them are like necessary home run picks, but I quite like the first three picks. But
Yeah.
I think it's the back half people have some problem with. I know Scott Cobb, our mutual friend, wasn't too um, enthusiastic. Would have liked the receiver and definitely a bit more of a skill player. How do you feel about it? Because the first three, I actually don't mind. I don't know if.
Yeah, I've got a bit different take than than Scott has. I was actually fairly pleased with the draft, to be honest with you. I think they did hit a home run with Christian Gonzalez falling to 17. He's a top 10 talent. I know a lot of people want to see them go wide receiver and get one of the big wide receivers, but they weren't going to pay first round money for for the talent that was available. It's a good draft, but not high end, not worth high end salaries in my mind. The first round type of salary, certainly top 10, 15 salary. So I think, first of all, they did a good job of sticking it to the Jets by trading with Pittsburgh and letting Pittsburgh jump in front of them to get the offensive tackle that they wanted. And then at 17, Gonzalez falls to them. Dan, they needed to do a couple things in this draft, in my mind. They needed to get more athletic on both sides of the ball, especially defense. They did need wide receivers. As I said, they weren't going to pay a premium. I think they got a couple guys with high ceilings and low risk. You're not going to pay these guys a lot, but I'm trying to think of the kid's name now from Jesus, excuse me, from LSU. The Butte, or however you say his name. He played really well as a sophomore. Had a tough year last year, clashing with the coaches a little bit. A lot of, but coachable kid from all accounts. So, why they didn't get a big name receiver, I think they got two guys in him and the kid from Liberty, Douglas, who've got a high ceiling with very little risk. Now, they're also putting a lot of faith in Bill O'Brien being able to improve that offense just by actually being an actual offensive play caller, unlike what we had to deal with last year. No offense to Matt Patricia, but he was put in a no-win situation. I like these kids. I love the kid from Sacramento State. He's probably going to play some safety along with linebacker. Keon, good grief, I'm having trouble with names today remembering. Keon White from Georgia Tech. He can play all along the defensive line. They got deeper on the offensive line. They've got some guys who will compete for jobs and push some of the veterans in camp. And they got some defensive backs. Plus, they got a punter and a kicker, which was very important. Maybe the kicker was a reach at 4, but he's the second best kicker in the draft. And Nick Folk has been fairly reliable, but he kind of faltered a bit last year. The kid they drafted from Maryland, he can kick off besides kick field goals, which Falk can't do. And when Bailey got hurt last year, it was a big problem for them on special teams. All in all, they had 12 picks. I think they did a really, really good job of getting value all throughout this draft and guys who have a chance. I'm not saying they're all going to pan out, but I think they've all got a chance to be valuable contributors to this team going forward. No superstars except maybe Gonzalez. But I think there's, and don't forget they hit a home run, I thought, with Kyle Duggar going outside the box like they did with Mapu from Sacramento State. So I like what they did all in all. I mean, again, I was surprised. I would not have been surprised. I think I told you if they had traded right out of the first round because he was not going to pay top value for any of those kids that were going to be available at their spot. So I think they did a good job.
Yeah, Andre, I like Gonzalez as well. And friend of the show, one of the high profile Jets YouTubers, he likes the pick from a Patriots point of view, and he doesn't have any love for the Patriots. So he works in the industry as an analyst for some of the betting firms. So he's someone opinion I trust, and he said they got a hell of a player. So I would agree. He's normally right about these things, and I think they had to do something at safety. It's a big void losing the quarter. It wasn't a dire need, but I think it was a sneaky need,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. So I like that pick. Look, it's hard to replace a legend like McCordy, but that being said, it's a body in there, and that brings us down to the trade down, trade up scenario with the Jets. First of all, there's a lot of reports about, do you feel that they did it, if you will, for want and a better word, stiff the Jets?
Yeah,
I
I do.
think yes and no. It's more favourable for that, but he always wanted a bit more value from where he was picking, so he had come to both things there.
Yeah, and by all accounts, trading that pick, that trade should have brought them back a third round. Everything I've read this week should have brought them back a third round pick in return. I think they got a fourth round. So the fact that he was willing to take less than value for that trade shows you that he just wanted to make sure the Jets didn't get the guy that they wanted. Um, and again, that's some gamesmanship. I'm not surprised. He looks to stick it to the. They did make a trade with the Jets later on, surprisingly enough. But I think there was no doubt that he felt he could go back to 17, get his guy, and still, at the same time, stick it to the Jets a little bit. And I think he's more than happy to do that. So it is what it is.
Um, do you agree? I'm not sure. I believe what Joe Douglas is saying that if he was there, they wouldn't have picked him, or certainly that's what they ain't outright said it, but everybody knows his relationship with Daniel Jeremiah, and he said that on the show. I'm not sure I personally believe that of us, unless they absolutely loved the kid they drafted, then obviously they are obviously had this deal in the works for Billy Turner as well. So I find it hard to believe, but at the same time, it's not completely unbelievable because they do love a pass rush.
They do, but I don't believe them. I think they had their eyes set on Broderick Jones the whole time, and they had to regroup. If you remember, right after this trade, the Jets had to regroup, and they used up every second of their time, if I'm not mistaken, before they made their pick. So I do not think they got the guy they wanted anyway. I don't think so. That's true.
I agree because I think if this is your guy and you loved him, they've got to know that most people probably wouldn't have picked him as high, so you would have been working the phones to move back. Before that, it seems like a panic move to me. I've got nothing wrong with the kid, and if they do like the kid, I don't care if they picked him 10 spots higher. But it just seemed like they were panicked to me. And if it wasn't, if you had no intention of when the Steelers are looking to trade up, why wouldn't you trade back a spot and get that fourth round pick if you didn't want the kid anyway?
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. And with the pick that they make, I think they blew it to it. Did anybody else who took a defensive pass rusher? Because Nolan Smith sits there and falls to the Eagles at number 30 or 31, whatever it was, 31, I guess. Which is crazy. This kid is going to be a star, and the Jets would have been very, I think, smarter to pick him than the kid from Iowa State.
I agree. One thing what I can say is they seem to like a certain style, and maybe they didn't want to see him as the guy
Maybe.
what they wanted, and this pick seems to be as much for the future as it is now. And would Nolan Smith have wanted to have, I don't know, 25% of the snaps? So possibly that is part of the reason, because I think this pick is a Carl Lawson replacement in a year's time rather than what can we get now.
Possibly, but look at they're in a position where I take the best player at that position and not somebody to build on for the future. They're in win now mode, and I would take somebody who could help them more now. And Nolan Smith, in my mind, would help them more this year than the guy they picked, who keeps slipping my mind. I got to look back here. What is his name? Oh yeah, McDonald, right? So again, I just think they'd have been better. I think a lot of teams will probably regret not taking Nolan Smith at some point.
Yeah, I agree. If for no other reason than they obviously allowed to do it. So
Now the
one thing I did.
rest of the teams after the Jets, sorry Dan, the rest of after the Jets, at least they have the excuse of saying, well, we didn't draft that position, right? So they're the last team that took an outside linebacker or edge rusher, whatever you want to call these two guys. the other teams all drafted different positions, so at least they'll have that to fall back on. The Jets won't.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And look, if they didn't, once they beat, what they should have done is get whatever you can, trade them back, or go receiver or D tackle, get
Yeah.
a dominant D tackle, or it's not really a need. I wouldn't have minded having a second Ohio State receiver. It wasn't a dire need, but it's sort of get something for Aaron Rodgers rather than this pick because you had the momentum and you still have, but it just seems like this pick maybe they've been praised for their drafting and this lost some of that momentum, it seems to me.
Yeah, I had Smith Nijba, if that's how you say his name, slotted in that spot for the Jets. I thought it would have been a nice pickup. I'm sure they were a little afraid about his health. He didn't play a lot the last 2 years. He played, I think he had 2 catches last year. Maybe that's about it. But by all accounts, he may be better than Wilson, who's going to be an all pro. So that it would have been a good pick, I think, for them there. But I won't argue with the with going a little bit more on defense. But you know, we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. What I would have done is just Corey Davis is cuttable, but just keep him around and almost treat him like a luxury pick. You'd find out this year how injury prone he is or not. So, but that's not what they did. And
Well, maybe Aaron Rodgers told
well,
him he didn't need a wide receiver. Just go get Randall Cobb, who you know they're better off with Randall Tex Cobb. I think at this point. I think he might have passed away though.
there is that. But before we talk deep about the Jets, how do you feel about the kicker situation? I think this was two things. One, I think once the first kicker went off the board earlier than people thought, probably on their board they had two guys, and once the first one went, well, Bill probably thought, I don't want to end up with a second rate. Let's go out and get this guy. And I'm going to be honest, I think he like trade with the Jets because if it comes off, he can say, not only did I stiff you with the first pick, you enabled me to get the kicker what might win games against you. For the Jets' point of view, I think Joe Douglas, even though the pick didn't go well, I know a lot of fans are saying, oh, I don't like this, you don't do them any favours. I think Joe Douglas just liked the deal. He saw it as an opportunity to get some darts to throw to fill up some of these positions of need. And he didn't consider it a deep class, so he thought go for quantity over quality. And I think it just worked for both sides, to be honest with you.
I do too, and I think he's got a big leg by all accounts. He's kicked in the Northeast, which is a plus. He said he likes kicking in the cold and the wind, which he's going to do a lot of in Foxborough. Um, his accuracy leaves a little bit desired, but again, he's going to get some good coaching in the NFL, and I think this was a good pick for the Patriots and Nick Folk. I He's not done yet. I'm sure they're going to compete, and Folk could very well be the kicker. They could very well carry two kickers. It's possible. And this kid kicks off and maybe kicks a longer field goals. We'll see what Bill decides to do, but I think it's a good pick.
Yeah. From what I hear, could be your kicker of the future. We will see. So we talked about the McDonald pick in general. How do you view the Jets draft class? I don't hate it. There's some picks what you think maybe not what I would have done. But that being said, you last year Jets fans was spoiled. You're not going to get a class like that. And there's not a absence of tackle. There wasn't a huge position of need. So if this is what way they want to go, most of these guys will probably be rotational pieces.
Mhm.
Some of them, like the tight end picked in the seventh, even though Jets fans are going crazy on his measurables. Some of these guys might not even make the roster, who knows? So I found the draft class okay. It doesn't make you sit back and think that's a heck of a draft class, but it's not a terrible picks. A lot of them make sense. I think the running back's probably the one what has the biggest, if it comes off, a boom to it. How did you feel about the draft class game?
I think they did it okay. I mean, it wasn't awful. I wouldn't give them. I think that, like a lot of teams, because of the draft and the type of players that were available, I think they had a decent draft. The only team I really think had a bad draft myself were the Lions, between the draft and trading Swift. I think the Jets had like as you said, there's no huge position of need. There's no exciting names on this list, but they've got a couple of linemen to maybe add some depth to their offensive line. And again, they got a guy in Tippmann from Wisconsin who I think can play more positions, just center, which a lot of teams are looking for now, versatile guys on that line. One guy I think to keep a watch on is Abanikande, if I'm saying his name right, from Pittsburgh. He could be a sleeper pick in that from that fifth round. He's a guy to keep an eye on, maybe being a decent contributor to this team sooner than you think, depending on
That,
Hall's health and all that.
yeah, that's where pick what I said. I think it has the biggest potential to be a have
Yeah.
boom to it. He actually look, he's not Bruce Hall, but he does some of the things Bruce can do. So there's two factors. If you want to take it easy on Bruce early up, he can do some of the things, and I also think they was probably a little underwhelmed by Michael Carter's second year. They're not going to say that, but his yards per carry wasn't great. He looked like he slowed down a little bit, and when the holes did open up, he was hesitant. So I feel they made this draft pick to cover for the injury, and maybe he can usurp because they've got the undrafted rookie from last year, Bam Knight, who
Mm-hmm.
will probably be number three. So there's some bodies in this room, and I'm interested by this pick because I think he could be kickoff returner replacing Berrios as well. So he has some value there for where he's picked.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much all of that. I mean, Carter they definitely need to take a running back somewhere because I know they're not happy with Carter's regression last year. And as you know from talking with me on this show, I was very high on Michael Carter when they drafted him. I thought he was the steal of the draft 2 years ago in the fourth round. And last year he regressed, noticeably. So I'm sure the the Nets. So they get the Nets. The Jets are certainly concerned about that, and maybe a little push helps Carter maybe too in training camp and gets him back on track. We'll see how that goes, but I think he's a very good addition to this team, as you said, maybe in the kicking game and also filling in where he needs to fill in, and maybe Hall will be back sooner than they think. And you never know, though; it might take him a year, like we saw with Barkley, to get back to where he was when he got hurt, though. So I
Yeah,
like
I
this.
agree. So before we move to the Giants, they brought some people in this week, filling up some of the holes in the roster. Billy Turner, someone we mentioned, offensive tackle, and one of Rodgers' best friends, it would seem, in Randall Cobb, and also tackle Al Woods, defensive tackle from Seattle. I'm going to be honest, Randall Cobb is probably resigning what I don't hate the pickup. It doesn't really matter to me. Good veteran presence, but Al Woods, I love that signing. He's not going to be a Pro Bowl or anything like that, but they do not have a run stuffer. They didn't last year, so he could be a sneaky pickup. And Billy Turner, I've no confidence in Becton staying healthy. So that's a guy what
Mhm.
knows the system very well. Good veteran leadership, and he can move all across the line. Has played every position apart from centre. So for 3 million, I think that's a decent pickup.
Yeah, I think they're all, you know, serviceable. I kid about Cobb. I don't know where he's going to get his catches from, but still, he's a good veteran. He's never been a problem in this league, and I know Aaron Rodgers likes him. So it's probably only a matter of time before Mercedes Lewis signs here, because I know he's one of Rodgers' favorites as well, even though he doesn't catch the ball anymore. But um, again, I think those are all valuable guys, to at least add depth, push some other guys as we've talked about. So I just wonder if Rodgers is, playing GM a little here. Who knows?
Some Jets fans are going crazy about it. Look, if it makes him comfortable, look, I don't care. People up in arms about it, but I think he won't be a big part. He's a to cut. Mikel Hardman's had some injuries that covers for his injury. It's someone what can just say to the younger guys, "This is how we do it," and I think his role will be maybe on important third down, sub him in, a trusted pair of hands, and that will make the pick worth it. I don't think he'll be a big part, but people going crazy. But whereas in the opposite way, there's going crazy about Berrios. But if you look at his numbers last year, that's morphs him. So I don't mind about the pick. I'm not like doing cartwheels about it, but I can live with the pick. It's good value. Corey Davis as well is known for having injuries. Denzel Mims as well. So I'd rather having a Cobb than some undrafted free agent.
Yeah, well, look, he's going to be at best the fourth wide receiver, right? Even if, assuming Davis, let's just say he's better than Davis, or he gets hurt, or Mims. But he's not going to play. He's not going to get playing time ahead of Hardiman, or certainly Wilson or Lazard. So, but he's a good guy to have, in the locker room. Hardiman's the guy I like, that they picked up this offseason besides the draft picks. I like him a lot, and he comes up. He's had a lot of big plays for that Kansas City Chief team the last 4 or 5 years. So he's a good guy to have on that offense for sure.
Yeah. I agree. And they said Um, he's like the fifth fastest guy on the offense, so there's going to be some speed on this offense, which I think that's what
Yeah.
direction they wanted to move in. So we will see. I think Tron Alexander will be the next person to come in. It might not be until camp, but it seems like an obvious need. The fit's there, so we will see.
Should be a lot of
Keith,
fun. The East is going to be rough, man. I tell you, Dan. I'll tell you now. Here it is. What May 5th. Any one of these teams could finish first or last. All four of them could finish in any order you want to put them, and I wouldn't have an argument with any of it. They're very, very close, and it's going to be a very competitive division.
I agree, and yeah, I'm interested. To be honest with you, camp may have a big part not just in how these players develop,
Mm-hmm.
but what team gets the injury bugs that could be a game changer. We will see. The New York Giants, Keith, their draft. How do you feel? You're someone that knows college football far better than I am, but
Yeah.
I know some fans are complaining a little bit. How I view their draft is, I think there's not really many picks what you can complain about. Last year's draft was in your face, sort of. Oh yes, I love that pick. Whereas these picks were more, yeah, I kind of like that pick. I don't know what how you feel about it, but how I view their draft is it's a sneaky good picks rather than did they win the draft.
No, I think they had some very good sneaky picks. Deontay
Yeah,
Banks is a really good cornerback. This is a very deep draft for cornerbacks, and there's no shortage of really good ones. This is one of the better ones, so that's a good pick. The center Schmitz out of Minnesota is a really good offensive lineman to play too, and they needed a little help along that line. The guy to watch out for is Hyatt. He's the guy that I think will really be a steal here in the third round. Wide receivers, they fell way back. Uh,
massive need.
yeah, and there was a lot of talk, and I thought they might be looking at Jordan Addison in that first round, but they passed on him and went cornerback. Um, but Hyatt is a guy that can really go down the field and get the ball. I like him a lot. I like him and his running mate too, Tillman. But I thought the Jets might, I'm sorry, the Giants might go for one of those guys. And they did get Hyatt here in the third round, which I like a lot. Afterwards, nothing to get terribly excited about, but I think they're guys that could, compete for roster spots and depth, if you will. And maybe Gray will be maybe he'll develop into somebody that will be an eventual potential replacement for Barkley down the road if that comes to that. Maybe he's a project though. I think.
I agree. One thing I do want from them is if a receiver becomes available, they could do with a veteran guy what still at least still good. Just I'm a bit worried about it's either guys what you don't have much trust in or younger guys. They've drafted two receivers in the last 2 years and I like both of them, but I think they haven't really got a guy what you trust and can be that veteran guy. So I would kind of like them to add someone if they can.
I'm not even sure if there's. I'm trying to think of somebody that might still be available, and nothing's really coming to my head. The problem, I mean, Darius
Think of
Slayton's been a nice.
Hopkins, no one.
Oh, well, maybe, but I don't know that they can
Yeah, not
afford
that
him.
at that cost, no.
Yeah, I don't think they can afford him. They're veterans. They got a couple of good veterans in Slayton and Shepard, but they got to stay on the field. And they might still be able to provide some value. I think they're gonna look for Wayndale Robinson to step up, and I do too this year. I think he'll take a step forward this year myself. So
I like him.
yeah, I do too, and I think with Hyatt in the mix here, that this will be a much better wide receiver group than what they had last year, obviously. And health is all important. They can be great players, but they got to get on the field, and that was a problem for a lot of these guys last year.
Yeah, I agree. And look, they've added some guys to the O line, and given what the Cowboys and the Eagles have on the D line, not to mention Washington, they need it. So this will be a litmus test for them. So yeah, I'm not upset with their draft class. Look, you can't always have presumed top five talents fallen to you. So look, this staff has been lauded. They're going to have to develop these because most of them have the raw materials. Now show us how good you are as a staff because you've got the credit. Now I want to see if you can develop your own guys.
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be an interesting year for the Giants. A lot of times teams I saw with the Patriots years ago when Bill Parcells was there, they got really good in his second year, and then the third year they took a step back. So the Giants made that step this year. It's going to be very easy if they don't really stay on top of things as a coaching staff and players to not fall backwards because that's a very tough division as we've talked about. I mean, the two East divisions might be the most competitive in the NFL in my mind. The Eagles are probably, I would say, at least ahead above the rest of them though because of they made some great moves. They had a great draft and they had some other good offseason moves as well. So I think the Eagles are still going to be the class this division, but the other three teams are all going to be very, tough outs every week.
Yeah, I agree. We won't touch on it long, but the Bills, how did you view their draft? Because I was a little bit underwhelmed by them, but you know more about college football than I do. Have I got that wrong?
Uh, I really like the pick of Kincaid, the tight end, because they needed a
Yeah,
red zone target, and he's really, really good. Plus, he'll help in the run game a bit. So I like that pick a lot. The rest of it, I mean, they needed some help on the line. So the kids that they got are good players. I won't say they're great players, and I don't even know if they'll really make that much of an impact next year. But we'll see. I mean, I'm trying to think who else. I'm trying to look at who else they got besides the. I mean, Dorian Williams is a potential sleeper at linebacker out of Tulane. They needed somebody to replace. I'm losing my train of thought here. The kid who went to um, Chicago.
Edmonds.
Yes, yes. So they need somebody to replace him, and I think he'll be in the mix. I think you'll see him play more than you might think next year. But other than that, I mean, I'm not excited either. I do like the Kincaid pick a lot. The rest is kind of maybe projects. And again, this team's under some pressure this year because they can't fall backwards. As I said, I think any four of these teams could finish first, or any four could finish last, and Buffalo can't continue to slide backwards. They're not going in the right direction. And if they take a major step backwards this year, there could be some changes in Buffalo.
Yeah, I agree. So before we promote some things, I do just want to talk on the Knicks. We can't do a show without talking that. I'm not going to lie. I'm a lot more excited than I was a week ago. I feared after that game one. I think they match up fairly well with the Heat. I think it will go the distance, no matter who, more or less 6 or 7 games. But yeah, I think the next 2 games will be very important. Health's going to be very important. Both Bronson and Randall's been
Mm-hmm.
banged up, and Jimmy Butler is now. If they ain't got Butler, I'm far more comfortable. And the next chance, who do you favour? Because I think it's close, but after seeing the second game with Randall back, I kind of favour the Knicks. This makes no sense, but I favour the Knicks and think they will do it, but I kind of trust the Heat a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, look at the Heat are going to be dangerous because they've got one of the most underrated coaches in the NBA in Spolstra. For him to even to have knocked off Milwaukee with this group is no small feat. This is a good. This is not a team laden with talent, but they've got some good players, and he runs a great system. He's just a very underrated coach, and he'll give them a chance here. But I think the Knicks are going to have a chance. I mean, the fact that there's 3 weeks between games, it feels like, is good for the Knicks for Brunson and Randall and Hart and these guys who are banged up to get healthier and rested up. I think Knicks got to come away with a win in one of these next. Is it 2-3-2 or is it 2-2-1-1? I can't remember. Let me take a quick look here. Yeah, they play 2 and then they go back to Miami. Or go back to New York. So it's important that they win one of these games in Miami and then win that pivotal game 5 in New York. And I think if that plays out, then the Knicks will certainly. I think they'll win this series, maybe in 7, but I do think that they'll win this series. And they should thank the NBA for not reseeding because otherwise they'd be playing the 76ers right now and we might be having a different conversation. But if they win here and win this series, Dan, confidence and momentum is a wonderful thing. And I think they're playing with house money right now. I said before the season, making the playoffs and winning a series, I'm going to say that's a successful season and progress. Now they're playing with house money, and they get a favorable matchup with the Heat, and they can actually get to the conference final. And who knows what could happen? Randall gets healthy. These guys play to their potential and don't threw too many stinkers up there because this team does have a habit of throwing a stinker up there every now and again. But I like this team's chances to go at least one more round and maybe give either the Celtics or the Sixers a scare in the conference finals.
I agree. I'm excited to see where they are in a week's time. We will see. Before we promote what Keith's got coming up, I do want to thank anyone what supported their charity stream a couple of weeks ago. I got told a couple of days ago it helped reach 1,300, raise 1,300, of course, for the church where Lucas Logan works out at. They had an electrical fire in their gym, so um, yeah, they're very pleased with us, and thank you to everyone what supported the day, not just on a monetary value, just turning up, watching or sharing. So I do thank everyone for their support.
Good job by you putting that all together too, Dan.
Yeah, no problem. I'm not gonna lie. A lot putting 8 odd hours together. We had NFL players,
Mm.
college basketball coaches, all sorts of people dropping in. So definitely speaks to the community.
For sure. Good job.
So Keith, I assume you've got your Sunday stream of consciousness. What have you got coming up on Sunday?
Oh, Sunday well obviously we'll be talking a lot of Knicks. We'll be talking about the Yankees, and I'll just say this real quick and watch. I got a vlog that I did this afternoon that'll play at 7 o'clock, and things have got to change. I mean, look at Aaron Boone has got to stop looking at his metrics or his analytics book and just pay attention to the game. Stop pulling starting pitchers out when they've thrown 88 pitches in the ninth inning and you got 2 outs and a 2-0 lead. Anyway, watch my vlog. We'll be talking a lot about that on Sunday. We'll talk about all the surprises and disappointments in Major League Baseball so far. We'll get into the NBA and the NHL playoffs, and probably a little more draft talk too, because the NFL's certainly a 24/7, 365-day a year league now. So we'll talk about all of that and more on Sunday.
Yeah, everyone, be sure to check it out. We've got some great guests coming up on Case One-on-One
Yeah.
show as well, so keep your eye out for that. And before I let everyone go, don't forget to like and subscribe. TGI Sports Talk, Facebook and YouTube. I know Keith would appreciate the support, and all that remains is for me to thank you for joining me today, Keith.
Thank you, Dan, and have a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for watching, everyone. And until next time, let's talk sport, fans.
Let's go Knicks.